Thomas and friends, making tracks to great destinations.
The island of Sodor is surrounded by beautiful blue seas, fields of green and sandy yellow beaches. There are rivers, streams and lots of trees where the birds sing. There are windmills and a coal mine and docks where visitors to the island arrive. The island also has lots and lots of railway lines. Who's that puffing down the track? It's Thomas. Hello, Thomas.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the island of Sodor.
Edward is one of the oldest engines on Sir Topham Hatt's railway. But despite his age, he is one of Sodor's hardest workers and is always there to help a friend. It was morning on Sodor, and Sir Topham Hatt arrived bright and early to give the engines their jobs for the day.
Good morning, engines.
Good morning, sir.
James?
Yes, morning, good, sir.
Good. Now that I have everyone's attention, Percy, I need you to take a train of milk from the dairy to market. James, I need you to take passengers to Black Lock. Edward, you are to take a train of important freight cars to Great Waterton, and Thomas, you are to shunt the train for Edward.
Yes, sir.
That should do it, Edward.
Thank you, Thomas.
What's wrong, Edward?
I haven't pulled a train this long in a while, Thomas. Just need to build up some more steam, that's all.
Don't strain yourself, Edward. Take it easy.
But the truck still wouldn't budge, and Thomas was worried for his friend.
Edward, I'll take your train for you.
But it's my train, Thomas. I wouldn't feel right having you take it.
And I wouldn't feel right knowing that if you were taking the train, it'd be wearing you out.
I know I'm not as strong as Gordon, but I didn't think I'd ever see myself struggling with a goods train.
Don't be silly, Edward. Probably just took on the wrong coal this morning.
Well, I'm coming with you, Thomas. I'd feel bad if I let you go alone.
You got it, Edward.
As the two puffed down the countryside, Thomas's water tanks were running low, so they stopped for Thomas to fill up. Just then, James huffed in. He was taking passengers to Blacklock. Edward, I think Thomas is capable of taking his own train. He may not be the smartest, or the strongest, or the fastest. Actually, maybe he does need another engine watching him.
You come up with that one yourself, James?
Huh?
Right.
Anyway, James, I'm well aware that Thomas can manage his own train. He's just helping me out today. Oh, poor old Edward's finally calling it quits. Hanging up the old piston rods. At his final destination, everyone hop aboard. Next stop, the scrap yard. Oh, I cracked myself up, James. You're really something else. The signal at Dryall Station was red, so the two had to stop.
Well, what do we have here? Need help pulling the train, Thomas?
I don't need help, Spencer. I've been pulling this lot just fine on my own.
Really? Then why's Edward with you,
Actually, Spencer, Thomas is helping me out today.
Oh my, That's embarrassing. You'd never catch me asking another engine to take my train for me.
Come on, Edward. Spencer's being silly.
What kind of circus is Sir Topham Hatt running?
Eventually, the two arrived at Great Waterton, and the station staff began unloading the trucks.
Well, we made it, Edward.
But now everyone's gonna think I'm not useful anymore.
I'm sorry, Edward. I was only trying to help. I just noticed that when you were trying to pull the train that you were struggling and
That's the problem, Thomas. I'm not able to pull trains anymore, so Topham Hatt's going to send me for scrap.
Well, hello there, Edward. James told me that you needed Thomas to pull your train. How pathetic. I would never.
Gordon, quit it.
Oh, what? What's old clapped-out Edward gonna do about it? Alright, your trucks have been unloaded. You can take them back to the yard now.
I'll show you what I'll do. Thomas, I'll take the trucks back to the yard.
But Edward...
I got this, Thomas. Thank you for your help today, Thomas, but it's time for old clapped-out Edward to show everyone what a really useful engine looks like.
Go, Edward!
Pah!
Just then Edward saw Gordon again. He was coming back from the washdown. Gordon wanted to tease Edward, but when he saw how hard Edward was working, he felt bad about what he had said earlier.
Go get him, Edward!
Edward smiled. For the first time all day, he felt like a really useful engine. But all of a sudden, Edward's wheels started making a strange noise, and he felt himself going slower and slower. What's happening to me? Edward's driver pulled him onto a siding out of the way.
You've pushed yourself too hard, Edward. You've burst a cylinder.
Oh dear.
Hello, Edward. You don't look so good.
I've broken down, Percy. Do you think you could take me back to the sheds?
Shouldn't I let Sir Topham Hatt know first?
If Sir Topham Hatt knows I broke down, then I'm destined for the scrap heap.
Edward,
I don't want Sir Topham Hatt to know.
if you say so, Edward.
Thank you, Percy. It was late in the evening by the time Percy and Edward had gotten back to the sheds. Thank you for your help, Percy.
No problem, Edward.
Edward, I need to have a word with you.
Yes, sir.
The Great Waterton station master called me earlier today. He told me that Thomas was the one to deliver the freight cars to the station, not you.
Well, sir,
And why did Percy shunt you to the sheds? What's going on, Edward?
Oh, I'm sorry, sir. I tried taking the train this morning, but I just couldn't gather the steam. So Thomas offered to take it for me.
Then what?
Then, when we got to Great Waterton, I told Thomas I would take the trucks back on the return trip, but I ended up breaking down and Percy had to take me back to Tidmouth's sheds.
Well, Edward, I'm going to have to... sir, if I may, I saw Edward taking the freight cars back today. He was working very hard, sir, and, well, I was silly for thinking otherwise. Please, sir, don't send Edward to the scrapyard, sir. Well, Edward, I'm disappointed that you didn't tell me that you were having trouble today. But I'm glad you worked hard when you did. I would never scrap my number 2 blue engine. You're essential to the railway, Edward. You just need some new parts, that's all.
You really mean it, sir?
Of course, Edward. Any engine with a worn cylinder, young or old, is going to struggle with a heavy load. A quick trip to the works and you'll be good as new.
Edward smiled. Looks like this old-timer's not going to be seeing the scrapyard anytime soon.